Mage. Elemental Evocation. Prep is really good. Cheating minions into play is better than cheating spells. So this is really good. Simple. This is just a great card. Daring Fire Eater. Obviously good in like a wild, not a wild mage, an odd mage. A little bit more support there. But honestly, just anything with Frost Lich, like being able to make a water elemental of a 3 or less health thing, and then if this sticks, you can convert it into water elemental yourself. If they're not playing stuff, you can just play it and shoot it. Yeah, pretty reasonable card. There's a lot of like reasonable cards that can go into that style of deck, though. So I don't know that this will see play, but it's definitely a very cool 1-drop. Spirit of the Dragonhawk, awesome effect. I don't actually think it's that good, which kind of breaks my heart to say. Like, this is a really, really cool design. Yeah, you can't play it in odd. You can play it like with Daring Fire Eater. So it's like turn 5, 2-card combo to deal 3 to 3 things. In Mage, you can be doing better stuff. Such a cool. I want this spirit to be good. I don't actually think it is though, unfortunately. Pyromaniac. This card is awesome. Spider Tanks are just good. Spider Tanks are just good. Spider Tanks don't need an effect to justify their position in a deck. Obviously, the effect helps it, and there's a really good effect. If it triggers even 1 time, this card is insane. 3 mana, 3/4, draw a card for doing what you want to be doing anyways. You want to be shooting your enemies' minions off the board. So you're just getting rewarded with cards for doing what you want to be doing on an extremely efficiently statted 3-drop. This card is phenomenal. Splitting Image, this card looks pretty bad, and it might be pretty bad. But I think it's just weird. And so, back in the day, this is a little bit of a history lesson. Back in the day, we had Sludge Belcher and Duplicate. And so one of the things a lot of mages would do is they'd play their Duplicate, which is, for you youngins out there, Duplicate's a secret where you trade into the thing. When a minion dies, you get 2 copies back in your hand. So you'd play the Duplicate, and then you play the Sludge Belcher, and they'd have to trade into the Sludge Belcher, and then you get 2 more Sludge Belchers to play on the following turns, and it's just really fucking irritating to cut through all of that sludge. This seems like it would fit in a similar type of situation. You play this with minions that your opponent is forced to attack. Obviously, like taunt minions. You can even play it in Wild with Sludge Belchers. Maybe some sort of like Death Rattle N'Zoth Mage in Wild. You can find a home for this. I don't think it's good in traditional secret mage type decks because they run a lot of small minions. I don't think it's good in traditional control mage style decks because they don't run many minions at all. It's a very weird card, but I don't think it's as useless as a lot of people seem to be thinking. It's just you need to have a very clear plan of like, all right, what do I want them to attack into, and why are they attacking into it? And if you can answer those questions, then I think you have a home because it's neither better nor worse than Duplicate. You don't get you're missing out on a copy, but it's better than Duplicate with giant things because you don't have to play them. It just summons them, right? So you could play this with like, I don't know, Primordial Drake or something. With Duplicate, you'd have 2 more 8-drops to play. This would just summon a 4/8 taunt. I think the card's very interesting. I don't really know what to do with it yet, but I definitely wouldn't craft it. But if I open them, I'm definitely going to try to make them work. I think it's pretty cool. Scorch, basically Mage's version of Wing Blast. Elemental trigger is easier to meet than having killed a minion that turn. So I think it's a bit better than Wing Blast, but it's in a class that doesn't need the removal as much. The video just finished converting. Yeah, if you're playing like a mid-range elemental mage thing, maybe you play these because you're probably going to meet the trigger a lot and it's going to be pretty efficient removal. I don't think you really need it, and there's a good chance you're running Book of Specters in that style of deck, and then it's not really worth it. It's not a terrible card. Good pack filler. Blast Wave, this card is complete trash if you don't buff it. So on its own, it's complete trash. With Emissary, this card is extremely intriguing. So you have to overkill. So they have to have 1 or less health. So it's basically against Baku Paladin, you just dump on them. And that's it. That's it. Like in its natural state, Blast Wave is so bad on 5. But if you play it with like Celestial Emissary is already like a good enough card to include in these control style decks. Like +2 spell damage is quite good. The 1 health is quite good. You can turn it into a water elemental in a pinch. Like it's just a good, efficient thing to fit into your deck already. And this gives it a really strong purpose. It's a 2-card combo, but it does Flame Strike tier damage to the board. So normally if you're doing combos, you'd want better than what 1 card does. But the payoff of getting a bunch of random spells is pretty significant. 4 damage is going to overkill most things, like against Healzu and Baku, Rogue, and stuff. You're going to clear a lot of the stuff. You're not just going to clear them, you're going to overkill a lot of the stuff. You're going to get a lot of spells back. Your Emissary dies and becomes a spell. So that offsets the cost of having to spend 2 cards to do this, as you're getting 1 of them back as another spell in addition to the other random spells. I think this might actually revitalize Quest Mage. Like, honestly, Quest Mage has lost a lot, but this on its own can practically complete the quest. Like, no joke, against any aggro deck, this practically just completes the quest with the combo. And even outside of that, in just a normal Control Mage kind of deck, it's just a lot of value. And random mage spells are still quite good. They're still quite good. We went over the thing, like they've always been good and they didn't get worse. Arcanosaur is bad. This was really bad. So it's been said that there's a lot of room to be worse than Duskbreaker and still be really good. Because Duskbreaker, admittedly, is one of the best cards ever printed. That being said, it's a 6 mana, so it's +2 mana, which is a huge cost already. It's an Elemental, which is the worst tribe. And the trigger is more difficult to meet. It is much more difficult to have played an Elemental last turn than it is to be holding a dragon this turn. Like, it is significantly more difficult to meet this trigger. So it's more expensive, and it's harder to use. And then on top of that, if you did meet the trigger, it literally synergizes poorly with itself. You have to play a minion the turn before you wipe the board. It is like, that's not... That order's wrong. Like, that is the exact opposite order of just how you naturally want to do things in a Hearthstone. You want to wipe and then develop. You don't want to develop into your own board wipe unless you have a really good reason. And I think, yeah, 6 mana Duskbreaker is not a good reason, especially in a class with Meteor, Blizzard, Flame Strike, even fucking Emissary Blast Wave. Mage has no shortage of AoE board clears. Frost Nova Doomsayer is still a thing. Mage can clear the fucking board. Dragon's Fury, is that the 5 mana spell? They can clear the fucking board. They don't need 6 mana deal 3 with significant downsides and awkwardness. This card is just bad. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Duskbreaker is amazing. There is a lot of room to be worse than Duskbreaker and still be amazing. That does not make this card amazing. It is just bad. It's a Reno if you have the Frost Lich, but so is Geddon. Just play Geddon instead. This card's not good. Don't do it. Don't do it. Jan'alai, the Dragonhawk. This card's pretty good. It's not like insane. Ragnaros is... See, Ragnaros was rotated because it was just too easy to slot into any kind of deck. So you had like a lot of aggro decks, a lot of mid-range decks, where Rag was just their only 8-drop, and he was always the 8-drop. Right? So they Hall of Famed Rag because it made it really hard for other big cards to see play. It's the same thing as Sylvanas. They weren't broken, they were just oppressive because it was hard to make things that could kind of justify themselves in as many decks. The 8-drops and 6-drops that did see play were more specialized. So that being said, Ragnaros was still extremely powerful, and getting him for 1 less mana and having a 4/4, even with this kind of drawback conditional, yeah, this card's definitely going to be good. I don't know if it justifies Odd Mage. I'm sure a lot of people will be trying that. We'll just have to see. I think Odd Mage could be good. Definitely in Wild, where there's more support for it. But just even like outside of that, just throwing this in a random Control Mage deck is probably going to be fine. Like, it's just a lot of value, and it's not too hard to meet it. Because it's not even 8 damage to your opponent or anything. It's just deal 8 damage. So just ping 8 times. Ping anything 8 times. You're going to do a lot of pings. By the time you get to 7, this is mostly going to be activated, even outside of an odd deck. So you won't have long to wait before slamming it down, and then you get a lot of value. So it's cool. Hexlord Malacraz, very cool design. It's hard to say how good it actually is, because it's very slow. 8 mana 5/5s are quite bad, obviously. And it changes how you mulligan, and that changes the power level significantly based on your mulligan. You're going to have games where Malacraz is really bad and games where Malacraz is really good. You might want to look at this in like a Quest Mage kind of shell, but it's sort of inconsistent there. Probably less consistent than Blast Wave, but maybe it's like a backup for control matchups where you're not going to be able to Blast Wave as many things. You just try to mulligan for a lot of spells. Play Malacraz to get a bunch of quest progress. Yeah, Mage has better value generators in general, but we've never seen this effect. Like, this is totally new, which makes it hard to evaluate. I mean, it's not totally new to just create cards, but the way in which the cards are created is hard to... Because changing how you mulligan is really finicky, because you want to mulligan for the matchup, and you want to mulligan usually for the opening turns. And then further complicating that can have weird... Like, it can create situations where, like, a good Hexlord mulligan loses you the game because you have a bad opening hand against what your opponent's doing, you know? So it's just, I don't know. It's a cool card, hard to evaluate. I hope it's good. Yeah, that's Mage.